Sadique White. He is back with Syracuse basketball for another season. How did this all come to be?
I think this was a product of, Gerry McNamara mentioned during his opening press conference and when he was on with local ESPN radio station, even before that he was going to have one-on-one conversations with every player currently on the roster, go through with them what his expectations are for a player in general at the position that they play, and then talk to them about what their potential role could be. And my understanding is Sadique White was someone that they really wanted to come back. I think McNamara mentioned some of his non-negotiables are, X's and O's things like taking care of the basketball, and he wants guys that can shoot and those types of things. But he also mentioned effort. He wanted someone who played hard all the time. And I know that was not something we thought a lot of players on last year's team did, but every time Sadique White was out there, to me, he looked like he was going hard. And I think he has to work on, bottling that a little bit and being a little bit more smart with that and not get into foul trouble in certain instances. But you could see the talent. He shot better from the outside than I thought he was going to right away, which gives you some hope that he can develop that part of his game. I think he was at 36 or 37% on the year from 3-point. His athleticism is crazy. He's got a lot of potential because of his length and his quickness as a defender. I think he gives you some versatility because if that outside shot can develop, could he play a little three perhaps if you decide to go big? I think if you decide to go small, maybe he could play in the middle if he can bulk up a little bit. I think it's important for Syracuse to keep a guy like that is as talented as he is. And I think McNamara looked at him and saw that he fits everything he's looking for, can fit with the culture and with the effort and all those types of things, and said, this is a guy with that talent, with that ceiling that we have to keep on the roster. And they were able to do that.
And to your point about Sadique White and his potential, last year you look at his numbers, 6 points, 3 rebounds. It doesn't jump off the page. But if you look at his per 40 numbers, which I know per 40 is not a perfect stat, but it's 16 points and 9 rebounds. He also shot nearly 55% from the field and nearly 37% from the 3-point line. So Sadique White is someone who definitely has a lot of potential. So Mike, my question to you now is, how does Gerry McNamara plan to use him for next season?
That's a great question. I don't think we fully know yet, and part of that may be on how he develops. But if you think about some of the great Syracuse teams, they've kind of always had that forward that seems like he's in between a 3 and a 4, but is extremely athletic, bounces off, can jump out of the gym, really good defensively because of his length, excellent in the open court. And he seems to be one of those guys. But on top of that, he's also one of those guys that's going to be a fan favorite because he's going to dive on the floor for loose balls. He's going to be hustling all over the place. And I think he's going to be someone that McNamara is going to rely on to be a defensive force for him that can guard multiple positions, and someone that he's going to look to use in transition opportunities as someone who can finish. And then as he works on his outside shot, someone that on occasion can sort of sneak out to the 3-point line and keep defenses honest as well. So I think that they're going to use him in a variety of ways, but there's no question that the talent is there. He's got a lot of potential, and I think McNamara showed that he and his staff did a really good job at Siena of maximizing the abilities of some of those players. And if they can do the same thing with someone that has his raw talent, I think the sky's the limit for him.
Sadique White was one of 2 high-end 4-star high school recruits last year. He's staying with Syracuse. The other one is someone we all know, of course, Kayen Anthony. And to absolutely nobody's surprise, unless, Mike, you were surprised by this news, I don't think you were, he is staying with Syracuse. The news became official on Wednesday evening. So instead of asking you how this all came to be, because I think we all know how it came to be, he's Kayen Anthony. How does Gerry McNamara plan to use him this year? And where do you see, what is his potential for next season?
I think one of the most fascinating things with next year's roster is the usage of Kayen Anthony and Gavin Doty, because they look on paper like they both play shooting guard, right? And if you move one of them to the 3, you're a little bit undersized there. And we know McNamara talked about wanting to have positional size. Now, if your 4 and your 5 are on the bigger side, then maybe you can get away with that as a starting situation, or if you decide to play small against certain teams. But largely, I expect those two to split time, but I think you'll see them on the floor together at times as well. I think Kiyan showed the ability that he's got a lot of confidence. We know that. He can play ISO ball. We know that. And he's shown little flashes of being able to make passes here and there. I think the key for him is getting more comfortable handling the ball. Because if you can put the ball in his hand and he's comfortable bringing it up and maybe even running a half-court set here and there, that gives him more versatility, which gives McNamara more roster versatility. And then on top of that, we know the bloodlines that he comes from one of the best scorers in basketball history in Carmelo Anthony. And Kiyan has some of those same traits to his game. But obviously, as a freshman, there were some inconsistencies. Early, he looked like he was well beyond what people thought he was going to be right away, and then sort of regressed as the season went. Now, part of that could be role, right? Minutes being inconsistent, a couple of games not playing. But I think the key for him is if he can become more consistent as a shooter, that opens up the rest of his game and then continue to be more comfortable handling the ball. I could see Syracuse using him somewhat as sort of a point forward, point shooting guard type of situation here and there. I could see them using him to bring the ball up the court and then being someone that you can throw the ball to who can create his own shot. The other thing that I think he needs to work on is defensively. There were definitely times last year where he got exposed on that end of the floor. And so I'm not expecting him to all of a sudden become Gary Payton on the defensive end or a Michael Jordan on the defensive end. I'm just expecting him to be competent down there. And if he can bring his offensive game along, at least get to kind of an average level defensively, now I think you've got a well-rounded player that can make an impact for you.